Imagine this. A helpless Triple H is handcuffed to the ring ropes, his eyes burning with a rage that feels terrifyingly real. In the center of the ring, his wife, Stephanie McMahon, lies unconscious. And standing over her is his greatest rival, a man seemingly devoid of all empathy, Randy Orton. What happens next isn't just an attack, it's a violation. It's a moment of pure psychological warfare broadcast live to the world. So how did one of the most uncomfortable acts ever seen on WWE television even get approved? What was the raw, nerve-wracking story playing out behind the curtain, with a nervous young Orton, a husband forced to watch, and the chairman of the board orchestrating every second of the chaos? This is the untold story of the kiss that changed WWE forever. The architect of anarchy, the rise of 2009 Randy Orton. To get the weight of that one moment, you first have to understand the man at the center of it. The Randy Orton of 2009 wasn't the grizzled veteran we know today. He was a predator in his absolute prime. The legend killer nickname he'd earned years before had morphed into something far more sinister. He wasn't just arrogant anymore. He was methodical, cold, and calculating, with a sadistic streak that appeared to have no limits. This was Orton at his most psychotic. This dark evolution was fueled by his new faction legacy, a group of second-generation superstars featuring Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase Jr. They were entitled, talented, and utterly ruthless, serving as Orton's personal instruments of chaos. With them at his back, Orton's confidence was off the charts. He entered 2009 with one goal: reclaim the WWE Championship. His path was set when he won the Royal Rumble, last eliminating the very man who had kicked him out of Evolution years earlier, the reigning champion, Triple H. This wasn't just your standard road to WrestleMania booking. It was the climax of a story years in the making. Orton's drive wasn't just about the title. It was about getting revenge on the man he felt had betrayed him. And to get that revenge, he was ready to wage a war that would dismantle not just Triple H the wrestler, but the entire McMahon family. On the other side of this collision was WWE's ultimate power couple. Triple H was at the peak of his powers, the cerebral assassin, the King of Kings, and the WWE champion. He was the final boss, the guy on top of the mountain. And right there beside him was Stephanie McMahon. In 2009, Stephanie was more than just Triple H's on-screen wife. She was a real authority figure in the company, the daughter of the chairman, Vince McMahon. And that dynamic is everything. The feud wasn't just wrestler versus wrestler. It was a challenger versus the ruling family. The lines between story and reality were deliberately blurred. When Orton went after Stephanie, he wasn't just targeting another character. He was targeting the real-life wife of his opponent and the daughter of his boss. This added a layer of gravity that made everyone squirm, because on some level, everyone knew just how personal this was getting. Triple H himself would later say, "You've crossed the line, Orton, one you can't come back from." Orton's campaign of terror didn't start with Stephanie. It was a calculated, escalating series of attacks designed purely to provoke Triple H. The first domino was Vince McMahon himself. In a moment that sent shockwaves through WWE, Orton delivered a vicious punt kick to the head of the 64-year-old chairman, leaving him out cold in the ring. Next, Shane McMahon, ever the dutiful son, stepped up to defend his family's honor. He fought Orton at No Way Out and again on Raw, but both times ended with Shane suffering the same fate as his father, a punt to the skull that put him on a stretcher. With the McMahon men taken out, Orton's focus narrowed. He had systematically removed every barrier between himself and the champion's family. The feud had become one of the most personal and violent in the company's history. Stephanie tried to intervene, but that just played right into Orton's hands. He dropped her with a sickening RKO, a move that finally, irrevocably, dragged Triple H into the war. But even that was just the prelude to his masterpiece of cruelty. The stage was set for Monday Night Raw just weeks before WrestleMania 25 for a moment that would go far beyond a simple wrestling angle. The kiss heard round the world, deconstructing the moment. The scene is almost cinematic in its horror. Triple H, lured into a handicap match against Legacy, gets overwhelmed. The numbers game is too much. He's beaten down and then, in the ultimate humiliation, handcuffed to the top rope. He is a caged animal, forced to watch, completely powerless. Stephanie McMahon rushes to the ring to protect her husband, but she's no match for Orton and his crew. Orton grabs her. He stares directly into Triple H's eyes, a cold, empty gaze, before hitting a devastating DDT that leaves Stephanie motionless on the mat. The crowd is in stunned silence. Triple H is screaming, a guttural roar of pure, unadulterated rage, pulling against the steel cuffs with everything he has. But Orton isn't done. The physical assault was just the appetizer. The real torment was coming. He kneels beside Stephanie's unconscious form. He leans in, and as Triple H watches in horror, Randy Orton kisses her. It's not a passionate kiss. It's predatory. It's an act of ownership, of ultimate disrespect. It's a violation designed for an audience of one, the man chained to the ropes, whose world is crumbling right before his eyes. The segment ends with Orton gloating, having achieved a level of psychological dominance that few villains in WWE history have ever touched. What we saw on screen was a moment of supreme, confident villainy. But behind the curtain, the story was very, very different. The man behind the monster, Randy Orton, was, in his own words, super awkward and incredibly nervous about the whole thing. He was in his late 20s, tasked with performing an intensely intimate and provocative act on the boss's daughter, right in front of her husband and her father. During rehearsals, Orton was so uncomfortable he could barely bring himself to say the word kiss. He remembered his face turning beet red, just hoping they'd run out of time and have to cut the segment. The pressure was immense. Vince McMahon was personally overseeing the rehearsal, choreographing every single detail. He meticulously mapped out exactly where the DDT had to happen to be just out of Triple H's reach, ensuring maximum dramatic impact. Orton even recalled the tense moment Vince asked him how he would do the deal. Yet, despite all the potential for real-life drama, Triple H handled it with complete professionalism. He knew how powerful this moment could be for the story. For him, the goal was to make it mean as much as possible and elevate the feud to a legendary status. And Stephanie McMahon, the consummate professional, understood its purpose and later acknowledged the controversial nature of the moment and its lasting impact. What the world saw as pure evil was backstage, a carefully constructed, nerve-wracking piece of performance art executed under the most intense pressure imaginable. This moment is constantly debated by fans as one of the times WWE went too far. But what do you think? What is the most controversial moment you can remember in WWE history? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take. That kiss was the point of no return. It was the final, unforgivable act that turned the WrestleMania main event from a title match into a blood feud. For weeks, Triple H's rage simmered, culminating in one of the most memorable segments of the rivalry, the infamous home invasion, where Triple H himself broke into Orton's house, leading to a wild brawl that saw the Viper get thrown through a window. Their clash at WrestleMania 25 was the blow-off the story demanded. However, many fans felt the match itself didn't quite live up to the intensity of the build. A baffling stipulation was added where Triple H would lose the title if he was disqualified, which reigned in the violent, chaotic brawl everyone was expecting. Despite the restrictions, Triple H got his revenge, defeating Orton to retain his WWE Championship and avenge his family. But the legacy of this feud isn't defined by that one match. It's defined by the kiss. That single segment became one of the most watched clips in WWE's digital history, a viral moment long before that was a common term. It's a benchmark for villainy. Current WWE star Damian Priest has called it by far the wildest thing he's ever seen in wrestling, a testament to its enduring notoriety. The moment solidified Orton's persona as the Viper, a cold-blooded monster capable of anything, and created a story so deeply personal that fans still debate it over a decade later. When you break it down, the story of Randy Orton kissing Stephanie McMahon is everything that makes professional wrestling so unique. It was shocking on-screen drama born from a high-pressure, incredibly awkward, and meticulously planned backstage reality. It was a young superstar having to perform under the watchful eyes of his boss and his rival, who also happened to be his boss's son-in-law. It was a company deliberately blurring the lines between fiction and fact to get a genuine, powerful emotional response from its audience. Was it too much? Did WWE go too far for the sake of a story? Or was it a moment of twisted genius that created one of the most compelling villains of the modern era? Maybe the answer is that it was all of those things at once. It was uncomfortable, it was shocking, it was controversial, and it was unforgettable. And in the world of WWE, that's a recipe for immortality. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of WWE's most shocking moments, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another story from the world of wrestling. Thanks for watching.